My name is Kristian Johnson, and I'm going to tell you about sleep apnea, the effects that sleep apnea has on adults, and the reasons why sleep apnea affects adults. I decided to do a report on this topic because I wanted to learn more about sleep apnea and how and why it affects adults. I studied this topic briefly in my psychology class a few weeks back, and it was pretty interesting. I want you all to imagine that you're drifting off to sleep. It is all quiet. There's not a single peep. But as you're starting to close your eyes, all of a sudden you hear you start thinking, come on, why does my roommate have to snore? I'm trying to get a good night's sleep here. Most of us would think we know what that sounds like, but really, we don't. We're not even alarmed when we hear it. Instead, we are actually irritated by it. However, that person who suffers from sleep apnea is not breathing properly. In order to obtain air, that person has to catch his or her breaths. But to that person's roommate, you, it sounds like they're just over there snoring again. So, there's no need for alarm, so you think. Well, with college roommates, maybe not so serious. But with adults, this is a very serious issue. In the 2017 article, The Importance of Obstructive Sleep Apnea and Hypopnea, Pathophysiology with Customized Theory, Marcello Bozzi, Andre DeVito, and Riccardo Gabi declared that obstructive sleep apnea syndrome is one of the most well-known sleep disorder breathing conditions. But what is it? And how and why does it impact adults? According to Marcello Bozzi, Andre DeVito, and Riccardo Gabi in their 2017 article, The Importance of Obstructive Sleep Apnea and Hypopnea, Pathophysiology for Customized Therapy, obstructive sleep apnea syndrome, or OSAS, also known simply as sleep apnea, is a complete or partial airway obstruction that causes significant physiological disturbance with various clinical impacts. According to Erna S. Arnedottir, Orla Badronsdottir, Kristen A. Olafsdottir, Bedindis Benedictdottir, and Thorladin Goslasin in their 2016 article, Obstructive Sleep Apnea in the General Population, Highly Prevalent but Minimal Symptoms, and Paul E. Peppard in his 2013 article, Increased Prevalent Sleep Disorder Breathing in Adults. It is characterized by repeated episodes of upper airway obstruction. This often results in either cessation, meaning that you literally can't breathe, or reduction in airflow while you're asleep. It has been estimated that at least 19 to 40% of middle-aged adults in the general population have some degree of OSAS. Now that I talked about what obstructive sleep apnea syndrome is, I'm going to talk to you about the effects it has on adults. Many adults who have obstructive sleep apnea syndrome can experience many unfortunate situations due to this disorder. According to Omar Hisley, Luke Oskin, and Adnan Yunal in the 2013 article, Evaluation of Comorbidities in Patients with OSAS or Simple Snoring, the resistance to fighting off diseases are low due to many sleepless nights. This puts adults at a higher risk than adults who normally sleep well of developing hypertension, cardiovascular diseases, and diabetes. Their chances of suffering from a stroke are high, and they are also involved in motor vehicle accidents. Now that I talked about the effects that obstructive sleep apnea syndrome has on adults, I'm going to talk about the reasons why it impacts adults. Through research, researchers have concluded that obstructive sleep apnea syndrome negatively impacts adults for many reasons. According to Tanya G. Weinstock in her 2014 article, Predictors of Obstructive Sleep Apnea Severity in Endotonsillectomy Candidates, obstructive sleep apnea affects adults for many reasons. For one, with time comes aging. Other factors include obesity, the way a person's body is positioned, hypertension, abnormal Epworth sleepiness scale scoring, lower oxygen saturation, and decreased sleep waves. It is reported that males are more likely to suffer from obstructive sleep apnea syndrome than females. Now that I talked to you about why obstructive sleep apnea syndrome impacts adults, I'm going to the conclusion. So we have learned that one of the most common sleep disorder breathing conditions is obstructive sleep apnea syndrome. We have learned about what it is, the effects it has on adults, and why it affects adults. Adults all over the world suffer from this sleep disorder. If you are an adult who doesn't have to deal with sleep apnea, continue to practice good sleep health. However, if you are an adult who does experience symptoms related to this disorder, make an appointment to see a sleep specialist and make sure you get a diagnosis as soon as possible. Thank you.